It was your fault, Dak. It was yours.
It was definitely Mike's fault. We all know that. All right. Okay. Sorry, we're back. This is part 2. The exciting conclusion. Will ever escape the crafty Catwoman? Anyway, all right. So Anthony was making some very good points, which I got mad about and just stopped the show. No, but the points you're making they were excellent, and you're right. And listen, and I agree with, and that's what you're saying is exactly what I've been saying to my buddies who've been calling up. But there is this still. You can't. Sometimes people just forget, like in all the logic that we have, like there is a perception is reality.
There is, yes,
to this whole thing. And for fans in Philadelphia, Flyers fans, when you trade away rough, and tumble like heart and soul type guys, that you have to convince them that it's worth it to do it. Like it has to be more than just like Niskanen is pretty much the same defensively as good as that's not good enough. Like there's like
it's not getting Chris Pronger.
Right. I mean, there's obvious things where you can say, okay, this is no question about it type stuff. But these are, I mean, people were pissed at Simmons. And even though like he went on to Nashville and did nothing, they were still angry about it because,
There's still people talking, reports saying, hey, maybe he comes back on a contract. I'm like,
no, I mean, I think that ship has sailed, and it's like, it's not, but there's also an element of this, like, what the coaching staff they're putting together with this group of players is fascinating to me. Like, because this coaching staff is this is a pretty rough and tumble coaching staff. So they really are going to have to get, I mean, all these coaches like to play physical hockey. And right now, right now the Flyers are not physical. I'm not saying they can't find somebody or can't go out there and
cultural mindset, everything else. I mean, there are players on this team that do like to engage, but again, who is it going to be? I mean, Travis Konecny, you want a little bit of edge, but again, at his size, you got to be careful with that. Robert Haig, like it certainly is turned to court in terms of being likely the physical replacement for Radko Gudas on the blue line in terms of the guy you look towards for hits and physicality. In that respect, but there has to be other sandpaper guys in there. Ryan Hartman's basically a third or fourth liner, but again, he's going to be hitting people. But again, what their view is on him in terms of the kind of role he's going to have, they are going to need guys in here, whether they come up or guys they acquire this offseason through free agency. There's going to have to be that sort of understanding that you're going to need that attitude in the lineup.
There has to be, and they don't have the guys in their system. They've got some skilled players. I mean, Morgan Frost is definitely another like tough edge nose player, right? Like he's a lot like Travis Konecny in a lot of ways, like that. And maybe with more offensive upside, but like
with really good playmaking ability.
Yeah, I mean, but Konecny plays like he's never, like he doesn't understand what pain is, like that's something you don't have players on this team that are doing that very much. Giroux used to do it, but obviously doesn't do it anymore, and
you know what the thing is? And Anthony's right in his assessment, and you're right in yours, and that's why I was talking like a fan, because I hear what fans say too. But if we look now, we don't know what else is coming, but fans are very unforgiving these days with the Flyers with the benefit of the doubt thing, because that's what they have to buy into that.
They've lost a decade. They've lost close to a decade at this point now.
They've lost a decade, and they've had some talent in that decade. It hasn't been like this. Hasn't been a team that's been like tanking. This
is the challenge. This is the challenge right now. You still have to wait for guys coming, because I don't believe in rushing anybody that we just talked about who could play for the team. And you did it with Carter Hart, and it worked. It's not going to work for everybody. And even Carter Hart in his second year, we don't know if they'll be.
Yeah, we don't know if it's worked yet. We don't know. I mean, and you're sitting there and I'm watching Binnington, and everyone's like, Binnington is a lot older than Carter Hart. I kept telling people that as a rookie. No, they're very different. They
are different. But at the end of the day, though, this team right now, until we know what they do, is less talented than they were 2 years ago.
Well, to take it to other organizations, Peter, with Winnipeg, I mean, we know that there are going to be players that are not going to be brought back, or players are going to be traded because of cap considerations.
Yeah.
I know Toronto, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but with Winnipeg, is Vesalainen ready? Is Logan Stanley ready to move up to the NHL? Is Sami Niku ready to take on a top four role? All these things factor into what Cheveldayoff is going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I don't know if you guys saw, but Custance had a big thing after talking to Chevy, Yzerman, Overhart, and Trouba in The Athletic yesterday. I thought it was kind of neat because it basically summarized half the stuff that's been said here, which is kind of fun. But it's an interesting dance. But the most important part of it, I think, that I took away from it, and I do appreciate him consolidating it all and actually having those conversations, because no one else from the Athletic or Winnipeg media has been able to get a hold of Cheveldayoff. So that was a nice thing. And it seems that they're dancing to the same song right now. And that's kind of important in this thing. If there's going to be a good return for Trouba, Chevy needs to be working with Overhart. They need to have the same sort of end game goal here for him.
Right.
Because the worst possible thing that could happen to the Jets is someone offers Trouba a 1-year, $8 million deal, and he accepts it on an offer sheet. The Jets are done. They can't trade him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the play. If you had a grudge against Kevin Cheveldayoff, that's the play you make.
Sure. I don't think anybody's going to do that, but I still think while he is shopping them, if he doesn't get the right deal, he's going to end up keeping them.
Yeah, I think he will. I think he will. Because that's been always Chevy's MO, right? I mean, he's not like Chevy never has given away anybody for nothing.
No.
Yeah, and taking that situation in terms of Toronto, I mean, we know that one of the things that Kyle Dubas is going to fall back on is promoting from within. They have players with the Marlies who they think are on the cusp of being ready for the NHL. A guy like, and talking about it as a role player, a guy like Mason Marchment, the son of Brian Marchment, had a really good year in the American Hockey League. He's a big body. He can play up and down the lineup in the AHL. Now he may be a fourth liner in the league, but the Leafs, other than Zach Hyman, Nazem Kadri, and Jake Muzzin, were pushed around by the Bruins. So, if you bring in Marchment as a fourth liner, if you bring in guys like Pierre Engvall and Trevor Moore up front, if you bring in maybe Liljegren or Sandin, but that might be too early, they're going to want to promote from within, but they can't do all of what they want to do just by promoting from within. They're going to have to look outside the organization in trades and make low-price free agents to make them more of a tough out in the playoffs. Because if they continue to go down the road that they're going to get eliminated by Boston or Tampa Bay every single friggin' year.
Yeah, Mike, how's Marchman's kneeing game?
He's not his dad. He is not. In fact, Russ, he's like a big Darcy Tucker. He's more of an antagonist, and will drop the gloves and be physical if he needs to be. But he's not a cheap shot artist.
Okay, Darcy Tucker was swell, by the way, back in the day.
I mean, all right.
Yeah, I'm sure he was really loved on Long Island after he took out Mike Pekka's knee.
Yeah. Good memories. I remember him.
Him and Marchment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just got a text from somebody else who's like, who actually is within the Flyers organization and says to me that, Kevin Hayes had 12 penalty minutes last year. I'm like, I got it.
But
this is not, I'm not saying again, like, this is what you have to do.
He's not a wallflower either. He actually, there are guys that can make plays and use their body. Now, he's not a physical guy. Don't get me wrong. But he's not a wallflower just because he has 12 minutes.
No, but I do think that this increases the possibilities of them going after Kadri, and I think that's what I keep thinking about.
I'll give you another player if you want another player. If let's say Vancouver does go after Shane Gostisbehere, I think Jake Virtanen would be a guy that the Flyers would be after.
I'm going to be a little more involved in that deal.
That'd be the main piece. Yeah.
Well, let me get your feedback on this, Peter, because Drager reported yesterday that Nikita Zaitsev has drawn interest from both Vancouver and Edmonton. In an Edmonton scenario, I could see a Zaitsev and Connor Brown deal. Remember, Connor Brown played with McDavid. They're desperate for wingers. Connor Brown played with McDavid and Erie. He's a much better player than the year that he had last year. The Leafs might need to move him out because of cap considerations. But I look at the Oilers, and I'm not saying it's going to be a 1-for-1 or a 2-for-1, but guys like Matt Benning and Chris Russell and Adam Larson don't move the needle for the Leafs. No. If Kyle Dubas is targeting somebody on the Edmonton Oilers, it's going to be a former Sioux Greyhound by the name of Darnell Nurse. and it may be more. Obviously, going to be more than Zaitsev in the deal, but it's good. I can't see them making a deal with Edmonton if a guy like Nurse is not part of it.
No,
you know how this ends, Mike, is that Louis Eriksson becomes an Oiler, Lucic becomes a Canuck, and the Leafs get a draft pick for Zaitsev, and they're the ones who win the trade. That's how this ends, and you should actually be hoping that's what happens.
Well, I actually think Zaitsev has suitors. I was shocked. I mean, I from the impression I get from like hanging out with Micah that Zaitsev's not that good of a player, but like the reality is,
no, he's never said that.
And I've never said that, but like I know for the money and all that stuff, but it's like he actually does have a lot of people who believe in it.
Ken Holland wanted him when he was coming from the KHL, so that reflects the interest from Edmonton. But the Vancouver thing, again, Peter, I go back to
Flyers did too, by the way, once upon a time, and they were
yeah.
Well,
I go back to the well-traveled rumor. If you look at Vancouver wanting to change their blue line and having interest in Zaitsev, I could see Chris Tanev being in that deal because the cap hits are about the same.
Yeah. I mean,
that would be
they want to move on.
I mean, both teams.
Look, what the Leafs get out of Tanev in a short-term thing in this year could be enough to make a difference, and then you see how healthy he is. Maybe they shelter him a little bit and how he's used. I don't think you can change how Chris Tanev plays hockey at this point. Right. You're not gonna stop him from doing some of the things that make him Chris Tanev that also cause a lot of injuries. Yeah, but he's a massive upgrade.
Yeah.
And it's not locking up 4 more years of term.
Yeah, it's a short-term attempt to do something. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to totally move the needle the way the Leafs need to move it.
Yeah,
but that could come in other ways. It could be part of one of many.
Right, but what it also does is it opens up space down the line for them either trying to re-sign Gardner, which I still don't think is going to happen, or extending Muzzin, which he's up after next year, and I think they want to do that. So that by trading Zaitsev for a short term, I think that's a possibility.
Okay, I know some people have to leave at noon. Maybe I'll have to leave at noon actually too. But so I wanted to real quickly, and we'll get into more rumors tomorrow. Not tomorrow, but very soon on Monday. I keep forgetting what day of the week it is, guys. I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind. Over the weekend, I wouldn't be shocked if we actually end up doing something too, because there's just this weekend. I'm hunkered down in my office all weekend, so it might as well not be a weekend. So let's.
A note here where we were just talking about Louis Eriksson from JP Barry, care of Rick Dollowall of Sportsnet. JP Barry on Louis Eriksson. We will work with the Canucks and look at all the options that come to the table. Meaning, I wonder, does that mean buyout? Does that mean trade to Edmonton? I mean,
that means either trade him or buy him out. But there's not really no other options. So
yeah.
I mean, honestly, there's not going to be tons of options for Louis Eriksson. So the one thing I wanted to discuss was like, and I just thought it was a cool insight and just a cool feeling, like going on the ice after a game. And Russ and I both did it, on the ice after the Stanley Cup game, and just how interesting it is, because it's a we've all people in this room, people on the chat. What was that? No, people. We've all been in locker. All of us have been in locker rooms in this chat, so we all understand that that what that's like. And you always feel a little bit awkward talking to a player. You always feel like it's your job. They know it's your job. It's all cool, but there's definitely that like, if a guy just had a bad game or whatever, and they look at you like they definitely don't want to see you. Mm-hmm. When you go on the ice after a team wins a Stanley Cup, you don't exist to them. This the strangest thing to me that's really fascinating. Is like you can walk around and it's the coolest thing, because you really do get to see them in their actual state of euphoria, just happy to be there. And they're not looking at you. They don't care about you. And you still feel weird talking to them. And especially right away, you definitely have to let the players have their own celebration and then wait to talk to them. Because you don't want to just jump in. Like, I think that's because the first thing I go on the ice and I find Braden Shen skating around. He comes over to me and he's like, "Have you seen my family?" And I'm like, because we've known each other from Philadelphia, and I'm like, "No, I haven't seen him yet." So he was looking for his family, and I got to see the moment when he actually found Luke Shen and a couple other people that were there, and it was such an amazing thing to see that complete and utter joy, and you really feel like you are like a fly on the wall on the ice, and it's so strange. You would think you feel so exposed, but it's like it's absolutely exactly the opposite. That there's like this fly on the wall feeling. You know what I mean, Russ?
Yeah, no, I absolutely do know what you mean, and I was very careful about who I spoke to and when, and because I don't want to sort of do that either. And
you don't want it's such a wonderful moment. You just are like, I don't want to screw this up for them.
Right.
You obviously have a job. You have to talk to them.
But the younger guys do want to talk to you. Some of
And there's also guys like like Delzato skating around like on the ice, like the guys who no one's talking to, but. Because I mean, they really weren't a factor in the series or anything that or even for the team, but like what I love about it is like this crazy feeling of like you almost feel like you're invisible, and you feel like you can go in and you can just share these moments with these guys and see what's happening, and eventually talk to them. But it's such a unique perspective that I think that one of the like biggest bonuses of what it is that we do when you get a chance to do this is like it's one of the coolest moments that I've ever had, like to be out there and just obviously the hockey fan in you is excited. I mean, you're on the ice with the Stanley Cup, for crying out loud. That you can't get around that. You can try to be a professional as you want to be. You're on the ice with the Stanley Cup. We all are hockey fans, but just to be able
to go along with that, I saw Craig Campbell from the Hall of Fame. I hadn't seen him in a few years. We're pretty good buddies. We were talking like we were at a party and the Stanley Cup was there, right? And we both sort of laughed about that. And so that was interesting. And I also ran into Andy Cohen, the guy who's on Bravo TV with all the Real Housewives shows and all that.
Yeah.
And I haven't been the only one that noticed him. I do watch the Real Housewives of New Jersey because I know someone that lived in that neighborhood.
Is he a relation, Ross?
No. But I did flash my lanyard and said, "Hey, for a Cohen, can I get an interview?" And he laughed and he goes, "Sure." And the minute I was done with the interview, though, he went right to the Stanley Cup like a fan and started taking pictures. And that's when I got a picture of him watching the Stanley Cup. And that, that is a cool moment because this is a guy who's pretty popular, has a lot of money, but at the end of the day, he's a fan. He's been a fan of St. Louis forever. Yeah. And now this is his moment too.
No, I mean, like Keith Kachuk wandering around, it comes up to me and like he's like, I remember when I was trying to figure out who the hell you were during the lockout, or like, stuff like just like, and then, other stuff like
Keith too. I did.
Yeah, and then like Andy Strickland coming up to me and like being like, "Hey man, thanks for giving me my first job. I'm so appreciative. I can't believe I'm doing this. It's awesome. Thanks for believing in me. Would you take a picture of me and Doug Armstrong?" So I take a picture of Andy Strickland and Doug Armstrong. It's just like the whole thing is like it's really incredibly special, and it's rare that we get a chance, like, and it really does, I think, say something to like hockey players as athletes versus other athletes, how they don't big time you in this moment at all, and they just allow it to be, and they allow you into it, and they don't care that you're there. And I think
actually, I can give you the exact opposite of that. So apparently, with the NBA last night, Kawhi Leonard let it slip and said, "Well, with this championship, Toronto has something to build on." And then he goes,
something that they can build on.
Right, they can build on. Then he goes, after that, no hockey player who's the possible impending UFA would ever do that. Never, ever, ever.
No, that's absolutely true.
And, unfortunately, bye.
You know what? He's gone, and that's okay. That was one of the great.
He delivered what he needed. He delivered what they needed. So
but you get the idea, Peter.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's very different. It's just like it is like the strangest dynamic.
They will build a statue of him.
Oh,
that's
sure.
Like and deservedly so.
And then Bills fans will steal it and bring it to Buffalo the same way that the Canadian fans stole the Thurman Thomas statue and brought it to Toronto.
Yeah. Well, no, Russ. There is a statue of Tim Horton in Maple Leaf Square at Legends Row, but there's also a statue of Tim Horton in Buffalo. It just happens to be across the street from a Tim Hortons Donuts.
Some people said that I should put some pictures. There are some pictures on my Instagram of this stuff that I did on the ice. And
I put some pictures and photos.
It's like all of that stuff. All that stuff to me is like, it's amazing. It's an amazing thing. But I wish I could share with all of you out there watching this, or that any hockey fan could get a chance to experience this. It really is like we are lucky in so many ways to get to cover this game and do this for a living. for sure. I mean, there is no doubt that we drew a good card, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel so thrilled about that.
And I have to say, it's like, you know, I really, you know, I envy you guys who have been able to go to the Cup Finals and be on the ice at the end of it. I mean, I had a little bit of a taste of that with the Marlies when they won the Calder Cup last year, and you know that was sort of meaningful for me because I'd covered the team for 6 years.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when they were on the ice and there was 8,000, 9,000 screaming fans, we're interviewing players. We couldn't hear them. I could not hear them. I had to listen afterward to my tape recorder or to my phone because I didn't know what they were saying.
Which is awesome, you know. And in this situation, you know, there were about 500 Blues fans.
I'd say that's fair, and they were making a lot of
and they were, and I've been in this situation many times because most of the Stanley Cups that I've seen won in the last 14 years have been on the road. So I've seen you get those people. And I don't know what that says about the pressure. I think it just says a lot about the pressure on a home team.
Well, I'll give you sort of a two-sided feeling of other fan bases when it came to the Blues winning. I got a general impression from Toronto fans that they were genuinely happy for Tyler Bozak and to a lesser extent Carl Gunnarsson and Alex Steen simply because they were traded a long time ago. But 3 ex-Leafs who won the Stanley Cup, especially Bozak, who, you know, he didn't leave with any kind of negative aspect. He, you know, Tavares was coming in. They weren't going to re-sign him. He was going to go someplace else. And I think everybody was genuinely happy for him. Now, I'm not saying that there were not people in Buffalo happy for Ryan O'Reilly, but when Ryan O'Reilly wins the Conn Smythe and played the way he did in the playoffs, and the Sabres got such a pitiful return in that deal, and it turned out to be a pitiful return because Berglund walked away. They're possibly going to buy out Sobotka, and Tage Thompson, it could be a decent player, but they didn't get the return for a guy who ended up winning the Conn Smythe. That put more pressure on the Sabres organization and Mason Botterill afterward to say, okay, you can't make any mistakes this summer because that was a big whopper that you made.
Right. And here's one other thing, and before we go to the quotes here, one other thing I want to say about this, because just to finish my thought, like, we are really lucky, but it is still a job and it is still work, you know, and it is still, and you know, and it's easy to forget how lucky we are sometimes, but you do, when you're on the ice of the Stanley Cup, realize how lucky you are. And you can't help but understand that this is like a hell of a job and a lot. And I so much wish that all you guys read us and watch us out there could experience.
And the one thing, it's cool to hear that, Eck, because, you know, last night, basically all of Canada was glued to the TV watching the Raptors. Yeah. And you realize how utterly awkward the NBA does their post-game thing on the champion, and there's no moment there like that. It takes forever for anything organic and natural to sort of evolve into it. It's really different, and I think it's neat to hear that perspective of how you guys are there, but you're not seen, and it's cool.
Does not feel like you are at it feels like you are just at a championship of like a beer league game, and it's hard to explain that, but it honestly does. I mean, if you take the Stanley Cup out of it, you know, because I mean, it's the Stanley Cup and there is that greatness of it, but the way people are acting towards you and the way the feeling is on the ice with all the girlfriends and all the kids. And the one thing that I just absolutely love is that a lot of the kids of the players, you would like in the past, they would always wear, like, you know, you would see, like, you know, O'Reilly, like little kids with the little O'Reilly jerseys on or whatever. A lot of them now are making their own. Did you notice that there was a lot of handmade like jean jackets with like people?
I didn't notice that. No.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like all these things, they're making like their own thing for their father. Like it still would have like.
No, you know what the thing was? I started seeing that last year because like for the wives and girlfriends of some of the Marley players, you know, Sheldon Keefe's wife had a jean jacket with the name Keefe.
Yeah, like a handmade thing, right?
And I know they're all doing that now. I think that
I love that. I think that really was, because it kind of like is like, this is my dad's beer league. I mean, you can buy 100, you know, O'Reilly things that you could wear, but it's not. But they're not, you know. It was just incredible. I so much wish that, like, you know, and there's no way of filming it to make it to get to kind of understand it. It's just because the one thing that it does strike you right away, because I mean, we've all been on the ice, you know, everybody's here has played hockey, but when you watch the game from above, like, you know, for the entire game or the entire series, when you walk onto the ice with all the people out there and the players, the ice feels incredibly tiny. It feels incredibly small. Like, that's the first thing that you can't help but notice. It just hits you. You feel that, Russ?
Yeah, I agree.
And the players are giant, of course, because they're on skates and they're, you know, big guys as it is. But the ice feels small. Like you can walk from one side to the other in a couple seconds, you know, and it's not like a big deal, but you know, you just get this whole different perspective on it. Really, really neat. I don't know. I kind of wanted to like, just kind of mention that. Cause I just think it just kind of struck me. I've done it before, but for some reason this year, I think, and the Blues were such a humble group because they've been through so much. I think that played into it as well, that they were just like, they were happy about. They were really happy. They didn't expect this. They just that this happened.
No, they were happy. They definitely didn't expect it. They, you know, half of the guys would say that Bennington was the reason, and then some of them would say he's a part of it, but it's a whole team effort. Like they feel like they have to say that, but they knew what they knew that Bennington gave them that spark, and they're appreciative of it because look, they had a good. Everything else about that team was good. That was the one thing we always looked at.
No, and you know, from our perspective, but you know, and Matt just brought up in the chat room, Layla Anderson with the cup was awesome.
Yeah.
I got to talk to her for a second. And this girl is like this tall, like you know, and especially now you imagine because she's already really short and small, but imagine like ice hockey players next to her on skates. Like she just looks incredibly tiny.
Colton Parayko got on his knees to hand her the cup,
and he was still taller than her. You know, like it was incredible. Like you couldn't, and I was right next to that when that happened. Like so, like the coolest thing is like, you know, I'm like literally as far away as I am from my computer monitor when that happens. And you know that kind of stuff is just part of what makes the NHL incredible. You know, is all these stories and all these little side stories and everything like that. And it was really neat. So well, we got to end. But Russ, you have some
Niskanen quotes real quick because the Flyers sent him out. They had a conference call. The first thing was he said he was a little surprised, not totally shocked, but it caught me a little off guard. I knew once the NHL season was over, from now until the draft is typically when things happen. Not really shocked, a little surprised. That's basically saying he's shocked.
Yeah, that is pretty much shocked.
So he was taken a little bit by surprise. That means he's shocked. So there's that. When asked about whether he'd be first or second pairing, he even said, "Look, am I number one guy right now? Probably not, but I think I could be a real good piece, a really good pair that could play top 4 or top 2 minutes if I had to. We'll see how the coaches want to use me." And then with Fletcher, he said that he would be a good partner for one of their young studs. So, like, it's what we thought. They woefully overpaid him. He says he's in shape and he's ready to go, and all that's great, but he's going to be 33. And when you hear these other things, you realize they've overpaid for him a lot.
Yeah,
I agree.
They are definitely going to focus. This is probably their. I mean, with the exception of maybe moving Gaspierre. I think their focus is going to be on the forwards from this.
Well, I was going to say that was the question. Does this deal preclude now them trading another defenseman in another deal? I don't think it does because they went D for D.
Yeah, it doesn't. And they really just basically went parallel. They went sideways. Maybe with a guy who could, like you say, can maybe show Tudor a little bit better offensively.
Well, he also said, "Look, I'm going to come to I'm going to be on the ice early. I'm going to stay late. I'm going to be in the locker room."
And he's a good guy. I don't mean to rip him at all.
He's a good guy. No.
I mean to call him Scandinavian. He's from Minnesota. I think Minnesotans and Scandinavians are basically the same thing. Yeah. But
you know. Great guy. I would say, look, if you want something, it's not exactly comparable, but it's a little bit close. He's always been better defensively than someone like Shattenkirk. But look, the wheels came off Shattenkirk way earlier than we all thought. The wheels could be in the process of coming off of him right now.
Yeah, that's going to be the issue.
I have a feeling like we're going to have a lot of stuff happening this weekend.
If things start going crazy, we'll look for us, okay? Because we'll probably put out. We could Mike and I could do a quick show, or anybody around could do a quick show. You know, we could all get together at any point.
We could partner at least 10-minute segments of 3 shows.
Something quick if we get to. I would say this is not a weekend for me at all. I'm just going to be locked up in the office while my family enjoys a lovely weekend at the beach. So I will be here and getting everything together. And because we are so, it's nuts. This is definitely the shortest amount of time between the NHL Stanley Cup final and the draft we've ever seen. It's always been at least 2 weeks. I mean, to have it under 2 weeks is just like.
Here's one more interesting thing. So Fletcher told him he was a player that they were looking at for a while now.
Yeah.
I mean,
they have been shopping Gudis for a while now.
No, they have been, and I mean, and I've never really been thrilled about it. Honestly, I'm just not convinced that they
People don't realize how important Gudis is in that.
Yeah, they don't. And what Simmons wasn't that. I mean, they have like
Simmons is already gone, so we can't go with
he's
back.
gone. But this was not a strong locker room. Like this is not this is not a locker room that can just take these guys out and not have effects. Like these,
right?
You know, both of them are, you know, very much have an effect. Like Nolan Patrick is not yet like a leader in that locker room.
No, I'll tell you, the number 2 guy in that locker room is Voracek, and there's a better and for better and or for worse with that as the case.
Yes, and Voracek can, you know, he goes up and down with his game, you know, and Giroux is a leader, but a quiet leader. He's a leader on the ice. He's not the kind of guy who's going to get out there. And you know, Ghost has gotten a reputation of being a bit of a whiner lately. Like that's like the latest thing you hear. Like, and you know, he was very positive when he first came in, but I think he's been kind of pissed off at the way things have gone. So now he's a little bit of.
I think it had to do with the coaching. It didn't.
Yeah,
work.
And
the coaching change did not work well for him.
It didn't work well at all. And it's not going to get easier with Therrien. You know, like so it's like I wonder how that, or you know, it's going to be for Ghost. You know,
Russ. Just a quick thing on the Capitals. Do you think that them trading Niskanen for Gudis? I mean, again, it's D for D. Do you think that means they're bringing back Orpik for another year? Because and
that's the other. There are 2 other things. I meant to say that earlier. Thank you for bringing that up. The 2 other things are they made a value judgment and decided since Niskanen's game has fallen off, Brooks Orpik is actually more valuable to us right now, which is kind of stunning. And then even though they're saving cap space too, like we know that,
right? And
the other one I just forgot. So. Whatever.
Yeah, but it buys time for guys like Lucas Johansson and Alexia, you know, they're prospects who may not be, you know, ready next year. They probably need another year or maybe another 2 years. And if they bring back Orpik, and I mean, right now they're spending big money on Carlson, but the rest of their defense.
I have to go, guys. I'm sorry, I really have to go.
No problem.
Go ahead.
Let's end it.
You want to end it, guys? Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you soon. Get ready. Stay tuned to Hockey Buzz. Lots of stuff.